Thank you. Do we have anybody driving the web? No? I guess I'll do it. What's the... I'll do it while thank you for coming. I'm not Patricia Dean, and I'm not Anita Overholt. I'm Tommy Trojan. I'm Mark Cooper, and I'm filling in because we have a lot of people who are sick with the flu. Thanks for coming. And as you know, today's program is devoted to some familiarization and exposure to the myriad student media that we have on campus. We've got a lot of it. It's growing. I like to use the phrase that I'm proud that Dean Wilson has lifted from me, which is that if we look upon our students, our journalism students, the way we should look upon them, the Annenberg School for Journalism is the second largest newsroom in Los Angeles, slightly behind that of the LA Times. Not much. How many undergrads? How many undergrads do we have? Do we know? How many journalism undergrads do we have?
About 500.
That many? 500? Well, then we're bigger than the LA Times. So the LA Times is the second largest newsroom if we throw in everybody. We have more and more students participating in student media. So today we're going to take a quick tour of our major media outlets on campus. And as we always say, and we rarely do, it would be great if we could turn it into a dialogue. So I'm going to stop talking in 30 seconds. I'm going to ask our presenters to keep it brief initially, and let's hope that we can engage you, because it would be nice if we got if we had time for just more than one or two token questions. So we're going to begin the program. We have with us Zach Wolf, who's the general manager of KSCR Radio. We're the second biggest newsroom in LA. KSCR is the second biggest radio station on campus, affiliated with campus. There's some other one, though. I can't remember what it's called. And then we have Alex Comisar and Dan Loeterman. Is that pronounced? Dan here?
Yeah, you do.
Did I pronounce your name right? Hi, Dan.
Okay, hi.
Dan is the managing editor of the Daily Trojan. Alex is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Trojan. Richie Duchon is executive producer of Annenberg Radio News. Lysee Mitri is the executive producer of Annenberg Television News. And Mark Evitt, sitting next to me, is the editor-in-chief of NeonTommy, which is the online production of the Annenberg Digital News. So why don't we randomly begin with ATVN and Lysee, and give us 3 or 4 minutes about what you all do. Let's try and keep it to each presentation just for 3 or 4 minutes to begin with, and see if we can get some discussion.
Okay, so we just air a live 30-minute newscast on Mondays through Thursdays. And I guess to talk about like some of the bigger stories this year, we're trying, even though we are an outlet for the broadcast students, we're trying to do more multimedia reporting, which I think everyone is. So we're trying to add more to our website. So for big stories like, say, Stephon Johnson is one of the more recent ones, that when it happened, you know, it's big it's big news for people on campus, but there are a lot of USC football fans, you know, all over. So it was just big news locally even. So for stories like that, we try to cover the story from all different angles. We'll do several stories. We did a story updating his condition. We did a story talking about his future. If he does recover, you know, what will happen? Will he be able to play again? And then we have a section here on our website for that special coverage.
Where is that?
So if you go to stories, I believe.
Where we at?
Stories.
Uh-huh.
And then special coverage.
Look at
So
that.
that's where we put all of our big stories, where we'll air not only the stories that go on our newscast, but we also post things during the day. Before our newscast even airs, we post things on the web. We post even raw video, raw interviews with players that were close to Stephon Johnson, with Pete Carroll. And another big story for the Annenberg School was the renaming ceremony that we had a few weeks ago. So we did the same thing. We created a whole different page on our website where we posted several different stories that we did, one just covering the ceremony, one talking about what this might mean for future Annenberg students. And then we had all the raw interviews with Wallace Annenberg, President Sample, so that someone who's really interested, you know, has a lot available, a lot of different things to approach the story and find out more. We even posted on our website just the raw video of the ceremony. So if anyone couldn't actually go, you know, they could still watch it as if they were there. And we are still trying to work with our website. We do want to redesign it. But right now we're just trying to work with it. We do blogs. As you can see, there's a section for blogs. Our producers and our reporters, after their shifts, they blog within 24 hours so that people can also get like a behind-the-scenes look at how the newscast came to be. The reporters will talk about their stories and challenges they face, putting them together, maybe any ethical dilemmas that might have come about. And also Twitter, we're tweeting throughout the day about what stories we will be covering. We shoot a Facebook topical where our anchor will just talk about a little about some of our big stories that day, and we'll post that video on Facebook so that we can try to reach out to our audience through all the different social networking media as well. But I don't want to take up too much time, so.
How many people work at ATVN? To the nearest 1,000.
I think we have about 200 volunteers, maybe like 30 each day. So it's a really big team, and people are coming in and out constantly. So that's also one of the challenges that the producers face is, you know, the producers are there from like 7:30 in the morning until the show airs at 6, and 6:30, after 6:30 we all talk about the show and what went wrong, what can we do better next time. So it's a full, you know, almost 12-hour day, and we have other people who are coming in and out, writers and reporters, and so we're always trying to work on, you know, communicating with them and making sure everyone is on the same page.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the sister organization, ATVN, relatively new, what is it, 3 years old now?
Third year.
And it's Annenberg Radio News.
Annenberg Radio.
Annenberg what?
Radio.
.org, right? Right back to that? Yeah. Annenberg Radio News, 3 years now, in its 3rd year or 4th year?
Third.
3rd year. Richie Duchon is the executive producer of Annenberg Radio News. Take it away.
Okay. 4 things that I'd like to mention about Annenberg Radio News. One, we are a day of air radio news magazine. So we're working with students who, many of whom are coming to radio for the very first time, never picked up a microphone or a recorder before, have some interest in news, and teaching them how to do a whole bunch of things that require a lot of skills that, you know, professionals develop over the course of their careers. But we're getting people producing a radio news magazine within a couple weeks of actually picking up a microphone and it, you know, doing really high quality stories. coming in, getting an assignment in the morning, and walking, going out into the field, getting sound, coming back, writing, producing in a matter of hours. So that's basically what the show is. The second thing I want to mention is we really sort of focus on South LA. It's an area we all know is undercovered in the LA Times, and some blogs get to it, but in general it needs more coverage. And so we, in partnership with Intersections, which is sort of its own entity, but we sort of work together to cross-post stories and focus our attention on South LA. We, as a radio entity, are trying to do more things to connect with other radio entities, national and state. One of the cool projects we have going right now is we're sort of working with a national group called the Veterans Listening Project, and we are in Southern California collecting interviews with friends, family, loved ones of veterans, and sort of shepherding those to our site and then on up to a national site, and that hopefully will air nationally on what is called the National Day of Listening at the end of November. This is part of a StoryCorps, so it's sort of an offshoot of StoryCorps. So if you listen to any public radio, you know what I'm talking about. But so that's a cool way that we're sort of partnering with some national groups and giving the radio show and program some exposure. And then the last thing I want to mention, and I think we'll talk a lot more about this, is really how to push our envelope and push our boundaries further so that we are collaborating and sort of harnessing the fact that we are the biggest newsroom in Los Angeles and working with each other to do more so that all of our sites are more robust and we're covering more any one place that you land.
I just want to mention to, thank you, Richie. I want to mention to our Annenberg students, with the presence of our Director of Web Technologies, Wendy Chapman, clerk in the background, and our Assistant Dean for Facilities, James Vasquez, are helping us spearhead the construction of a new content management system. It's a fancy word for meaning a big old hairy web highway on which the Annenberg media sites will be repopulated upon. So we're going to, I guess in the next year or so, progressively all of these Annenberg websites are going to be radically upgraded. And thank you for your assistance in that. Alex Comisar is the editor-in-chief of the Daily Trojan. Some people don't know this, but the Daily Trojan is not owned, operated, or influenced by Annenberg. It is an independent operation. In fact, I'm interested in the actual legal definition of it. I think you're an appendage of student affairs, but you even have some relative independence.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, yeah.
So, is it dailytrojan.com? Is there
Dailytrojan.com.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
we'll get a history too.
my name's Alex Comisar. I'm the editor-in-chief at the Daily Trojan. We've been around for almost 100 years now, since 1912, and we've. I mean, since then, our goal has been, to be the best campus paper that we can. But I like to think of our obligation as defined not by campus, but by the students on campus. In other words, we, like most of the news we cover is campus news. But if we feel like, for example, if we're covering like a city election or an issue that's national or even international, that we believe will, help our readership sort of understand their college experiences and understand their lives better. We're willing to go out and cover it. we obviously we still thrive on our print product in terms of money. That's how we make our money still, and we're currently figuring out how to make money online.
When you do, will you let us all know?
When I figure out the formula, I'll sell it for millions. But as the print product nationally is declining, obviously we've seen our troubles too. But we find that the print product on a college campus like this one is still very valuable. You've got a lot of people sort of on their way to class, with free time, with free time between obligations, and they pick up the paper. And even if they're not directly looking to get their news for the day, they do. Just because we're there and we've always been there. So we still think that's a very valuable thing. That said, we're moving forward. We're breaking new ground. This is our website that we just launched this semester. We created it on WordPress. And we're experimenting with lots of new things. As you can see, sort of over there in the bottom corner, that's sort of the top of our blogs page. We've got a news blog, we've got a sports blog down there, and then we've got a blog from one of our really good opinion writers, and she sort of adds a little bit of quirkiness to the news there. And then we've got our public editor blog there. We're also doing things like podcasts. We have a weekly sports podcast with two of our sports experts, and they sort of, go through and predict all the games, all the college games for the week, and they even talk a little bit about professional sports.
I'm glad to hear they're not going to ban your parties. I was very worried about that.
Believe me, we were too. But we'd also. In addition to what we've already done, on our homepage with the blogs, and we've done photo slideshows, and we've set up that carousel, which we think is really important, a really important sort of central point for our site. We're also looking to do a lot of new things as the semester presses on. But before the end of the semester, we'd like to get a couple of audio slideshows up there. We'd like to feature more video, and hopefully that's where a lot of the collaboration comes in. And we'd also, by the end of the semester, we bought a bunch of new equipment, and we really like to try some online streaming, and specifically. My personal goal is, web-wise, is by the end of the semester to start live streaming events on campus. And I think that would be really, really cool because, there are a lot of, this is just such a hotbed for, great speakers and great minds to come together. And it's happening all over campus all the time. But obviously, you can't always go to those events. Sometimes they're sold out. Sometimes, it just doesn't work with your schedule. And if you could, go on dailytrojan.com and see the coverage, or even see it live on your computer, I think that would be a really huge step for us. So those are just sort of a couple of the general things we're doing.
How many people work for the Daily Trojan?
We have we have in the neighborhood of 200 paid staff. So we've got plenty of staffers, and we've got about 13 people on our editorial board.
You have 200 paid staff. These are people who are paid for contributions. If not, it's going to take a job. 200 paid staff, you have 500 faculty lined up outside. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
We're going to go now to NeonTommy. This is the newest, most recent of our publications and learning lab, and this was brought into existence last spring, kind of at a last-minute decision by the school. Thanks to Wendy Chapman for building our beta website. This is supposed to be beta, but it's in an extended beta, but the CD's in place. This is a project that I get to direct. So before I introduce Mark, who will talk to you, I do owe the explanation because we get a lot of questions of why it's called NeonTommy. and it's because there was a hamburger joint and a strip club that had a URL that was open. So we decided to buy it. No, it's a complicated discussion, and there's no good answer for it, and that's what makes it so much fun. So Mark Evitt is our editor. Mark, it's all yours.
All right. So what the original foundation of how we were building NeonTommy was, we thought, well, we have all these great pieces that students are reporting for their class, the graduate and undergraduate students are reporting for their classes, and there should be an outlet for that. So that was one of the driving forces of where our original content was going to come from. And since then, since the spring semester into the fall, we've learned that we've grown a lot more past that, and now we're a fully functioning news staff with 5 sections with the news, opinion, arts, sports, and science sections. And our basic goal is to be we might be based in Annenberg, but our focus is on covering Los Angeles and covering Southern California. And I've used the same spiel that Mark said at the beginning, where we have at Annenberg we have the second largest or the largest newsroom in Southern California. And what we found is that the local stories that we cover, we have a piece up now about new bike lane legislation that's coming out. When we put stories like that up, there's an immediate response from readers, and we know that we're covering things that other news organizations aren't. They don't have the resources for, and so there's that. We know that that's what our readers want, and I think something that's great and that we're working on. So Mark's put up behind me our news blog, and we have a blog for each section. And the goal of that is basically, what's great about working online is that you can be doing hard news pieces, you can be doing what you think of your kind of typical print news reporting, but then there's the freedom to do a lot more than that. And we've really been working to explore that. We launched all our blogs in the last 3 weeks or so, and this is an opportunity for our reporters and writers to start a dialogue, to be responsive to the news. If we're not going to be covering it by doing an interview, well, then we can cover it by aggregating content or collecting, what is the best of what others have done. And we found that that's the writing is really good, and it's a way to generate a discussion. And another thing that we've been working on, we found there's been a lot of response to, is that we're doing stories that you just wouldn't see in a newspaper, where we have reporters going describing what it was like to try and get a comment from the Metro Board about the Gold Line expansion. Basically had a first-person story of this was what it was like. And we had a piece up about what a reporter was when she spent 2 hours in Assemblyman Mike Davis's office, and the interaction she had with him. In the spring, we had a great piece from Alex, actually, about when he was at the supervisors meeting and was trying to get a meeting to follow along Zev Yaroslavsky, and we ran the transcript of that meeting. And it's those stories where we also get a really great response from readers. Readers want to see what our reporters are doing, and they like the idea of that here we're showing you how we're interacting with local government and local politics.
Thank you, Mark. Before we move away from Annenberg to KXDR, which is university-based. Just would want to mention that really good news is that among the Annenberg Radio News, Annenberg Television News, and Annenberg Digital News, which is NeonTommy, we really are, without just paying lip service to it, we really are moving toward closer and closer collaboration, sharing the content, and we've even had an initial discussion with the Daily Trojan, and because we would really like to do that as well. So I think that by this time next year, we'll see not only a number of rebuilt websites and enhanced websites for some of the Annenberg media, I am confident that we will see not only a lot of synergy among these news outlets, but I think I'm sure that we're going to have joint reporting projects, and at least I hope so. And I don't see any reason why we won't. So I'm really looking forward to that. Zach Wolf is the general manager at KCR.org.
Yes.
Is the general manager of the USC radio station, KSCR. I can't see it. Did I type that right?
Yes, you did.
I've got every one of them right. It's all a blur to me. Take it away, Zach.
Sure. Hi, I'm Zach from KSCR. Essentially, what we do at the station is we're a completely student-run radio station, open to any and all students. We have about 300 interns, 70 potential DJs, and a staff of 30. We are 24-hour programming. Our listenership is based mostly online. This year, we actually changed servers for both our music database and our stream, so we upped our stream to, if anyone knows what this means or anyone's ripped a CD, 160 kilobytes per second, which is a higher fidelity stream than we've been operating on in the past. We are also under an AM signal around campus. Due to FCC restrictions, we are limited to a mile range around campus, but that's 1560 AM. What's great about KSCR is, again, anyone can get involved at any time. As you can see there, we have our link already for an intern application. We thrive on new interns. We have an interning process where it takes 10 hours of helping us out with a number of things we do around campus. And some of those things besides broadcasting, which obviously is our main focus. I mean, we have shows daily from 10 a.m. to sometimes 2 a.m. But mostly averaging 10 a.m. to midnight throughout the work week and Sunday. And then on Saturday, we also cover the UFC football games or the basketball games. We have a great sports department run by Grant, who I believe also works at the Daily Trojan. And also on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we broadcast Annenberg Radio News on our stream and obviously over the air as well. But we also are much bigger than just radio. We sent 5 of our staff members to the College Music Journal Music Marathon and panel just this week, actually, and that was a huge success. We threw a concert on October 17th at Ground Zero. We'd like to throw concerts as often as possible. Due to a decrease in funding and tough economic times, we've had to sort of rein it in there. But essentially, it was a great turnout. It's always free. It's open to students, and it's great to see our interns and DJs just get involved and make these sort of things happen. We also have what was once, 5 years ago, a monthly publication that has now become an annual publication that's going to be released probably by the end of this month or the beginning of next week, called Bandwidth, which is a blog. See a number of different departments. We have promotions departments that takes care of things like Facebook and Twitter and MySpace and flying around campus. And we're always in a struggle to get more students involved, awareness for KSCR. We like to obviously have a lot of listeners, so upping listenership is always tough because radio is a bit of an anomaly these days in terms of a medium. We have a live show every Friday where we bring in the band to come play, and that's been consistent this year. We're booked up full. So it's been really, really good. What we're excited about is actually preparing ourselves, preparing our staff for next year, and preparing the radio station as a whole to make the move into the new Ronald Feeder Campus Center. We have a new facility there with completely up-to-date equipment and a much more central location on campus, which will provide us the exposure and access to students that we thrive on as a station.
How is KSCR funded?
KSCR is funded mostly through the sales of PSAs, public service announcements. That's where we get the majority of our funds. We use a company that we're looking to wean ourselves off of in the long-term future. Created a sales department who in turn has put together a sales team.
So you have some support from
we
the
have
university?
University student government funding in a different account that allows us to essentially use expenditures around campus, which is very minimal. I think it's like less than 0.5% of the USG budget. So that's been our big controversy in the past, is that we've been getting decreased funding from the university student government for miscommunication reasons, whatever they were. But we've found ourselves to be really resilient, and we're not going anywhere, obviously.
And
except to the new campus.
you said you have 300 people involved. Are most of them, are they journalism students or music students or what? Where are they coming from?
The only figures I could tell you, I mean, I could go through all the different applications, but I could tell you,
General.
yeah, I can tell you that it varies. It's such a broad range. We have journalism students. I know on staff, a lot of people are involved in the music industry through Thornton, and I myself, I'm an English major, and it's just such a broad range. And anyone can come in not knowing a thing, and they can learn whatever they want to do. They can be a part of staff. From being an intern, they can be a DJ. They can post news, sports, and help us out around it. It's a really great opportunity. Enjoy running. Thank you.
Well, who has some questions? I have questions, but I'd rather somebody else ask them.
Yeah, how much does the Daily Trojan pay? I shouldn't have opened up that can of worms. We're actually, well, the way it works is, you know, we have an editorial board, as I said, of about 12 or 13 people, and those people are paid on a, you know, like a salary basis. And then the rest of the vast majority of our staff, obviously, is, you know, contributors, writers, copy editors, photographers, designers. And they're paid on a contribution basis. We're really lucky that we're able to give some sort of compensation, but it's not going to pay your rent.
So how much exactly?
It's like the way
that's a journalist.
The reason I'm not giving any exact numbers isn't because, you know, I don't want to disclose it or anything. It's because it varies, to be honest. Like the way we do it is, you know, there's like a base pay, you know, per contribution. I believe it's about $5, and then on top of that, the story or element is graded by the editor, like on a scale, and then there's additional money awarded, you know, based on performance.
It won't pay your rent.
It won't very prolific. It probably wouldn't even pay for this lunch, actually.
Mr. Gutierrez, Professor.
Well, it's great to see so many students that did so well taking journalism history, making journalism history now with this project. And I wondered, as we look ahead, do you think the best platform to get in is to get in through a specific medium and then broaden out to other technologies? Or do you think a better entry-level experience would be somebody covers a story, does a version for the Daily Trojan, does something for radio, does something for online, does something for TV, and anybody would like to kick in on this? Because I think it's encouraging to see the synergy, but basically what you have is newsrooms based on technologies in an environment in which, you know, multimedia, multicultural is where it's at, and as you make journalism history, that's probably where it's going to be going.
I think you're already seeing, I think now it behooves you to be as skilled in as many things as possible, and there's some specific, you need to know different things if you're doing a radio piece versus a broadcast piece versus a written or print piece. But I think there's if you're competitive in all of those, then you are certainly going to be better off. And I think now, like when NPR redesigned its website, it had the radio pieces and then it had additional copy that was written for the site. You're seeing local news stations now, they're going much more beyond just posting their what their show was. They're putting together additional online content. They're doing things we always talk about, the slideshows, or having that extra written explanation. So I think that it's really about basically figuring out how you can do as much as possible, and then figuring out how you can then disperse it.
So learn one first and then go into others? Or you're saying get a story, nail a story first and then take as many takes as you can?
Well, I think always having a story will give you a leg up on someone who has no story. I think it's always better to learn to be at least proficient in something before you try and go too far, because you end up not knowing much of anything.
It's strange. I think the question actually is answered very much by the practice of all the institutions, as far as I know. Because I think if you go nowadays and you shoot a video story for ATVN, you're going to be asked also to blog about it. If you're going to write a text piece for the Daily Trojan, they're now going to start asking you to also see if you can get some video for the story. The same thing, Annenberg Radio News will do a radio story, but the reporter will be asked to shoot photos for it. NeonTommy, we mix it all up and say, do them all, do anything. So those lines are really, they're really blurring.
I think that, with regard to Professor Gutierrez's question, I think one of the most important challenges in terms of getting reporters into our organization and getting them doing stories is pinning down that institutional knowledge. The way our administration works, the way student governments work, the way the student organizations interact, it can be very complicated. And especially if you're doing a story on something like the endowment or tuition or salary cuts or hiring freezes or something like that, there's just so much background info. There's so much history, you have to know. And so, even as you cover like a campus, like sort of a bubbled-in campus, I think having a story is great, and I think sort of having like an idea and sort of doing your thing on that idea is really important. But I think there's also something to be said for letting yourself sort of fall under the wing of a certain organization and letting yourself learn, not only what's going on around campus, not only what's going on in your coverage area, but also how to go about finding stories. Because with that institutional knowledge and with that knowledge passed down comes a much better ability to go and sniff out stories yourself, because now you know where to look. So I would say there's definitely value to sort of going to one organization, starting to learn there, and then maybe branching out once you have gotten a little bit more experience.
Just real quick, I actually have to leave. I have a 12:45 appointment, but my operations director, Michelle, can answer any questions.
Okay.
But thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Richie, you guys have been covering, as an institution, Annenberg Radio News, and maybe Willow might have something to add as well, South LA. And I'm just wondering, now in the third year, is the organization, is Annenberg Radio getting a reputation within the community among various community leaders? This is a journalistic organization that's covering our community, and if so, is that starting to reflect back in terms of deepening your ability to get at stories on a deeper level?
I think it's happening. I think we can always do more, but I think that we find it easier to, I think the neighborhood councils in South LA know who we are. we can go to them to find out what's going on in their community, and it's an easy conversation to have with them. You know, I mean, I think being on the web means having a conversation with the audience that you're writing about and covering, and that is something that we could be doing more of. And I think that's something that'll come with website enhancements that we're working on right now. But I think, you know, and it's also sort of happening with intersections too, and sort of we're working together to make both of those things happen. So yeah, I mean, in my time, you know, I've been here now a year. This is my third semester working for Annenberg Radio News, and I find that a lot of people that I talk to in the field know who we are and are, you know, really willing to talk to us.
Mark Ridley Thomas calls us back.
Yeah.
Now.
School board members from, you know, from the area call us back. So yeah, I think it's working.
Yes, sir. Going back to synergy for a brief second, what do you guys think about the notion of convergence? And is there a way for everyone at this table and all the organizations here to somehow come together and work together?
Yeah?
Well, and I think we've all started having like initial discussions about different ways we can collaborate. Like our people from ATVN have been meeting with Daily Trojan and talking about different ways, you know, because we do cover similar stories, but we cover them in different ways, in our own ways. You know, they're a print organization and we do video, so together, you know, we can kind of enhance our coverage. So like some of the things that we've been talking about are maybe putting some sort of link box on our homepage where we would link to like their top stories and they would link to our top stories. That way, you know, we can expose users of our website to, you know, not just our coverage, but just the best coverage here on campus. And then, you know, we've talked about doing joint projects with ARN and NeonTommy, where we would all be able to cover a story, and we could provide, you know, the video element of the story, and ARN could do like an audio slideshow. NeonTommy would do a text article, different projects like that.
I think that's the key. In my mind, I think there's a lot. We should be doing more than just doing the box placement and sharing. We should be thinking about what are our specific strengths, and then how can we basically build something better together that we could than what we would otherwise be doing separately. You know, and it requires a little bit of forward thinking of, you know, what are the stories coming up in the future, and then how can we then divide that workload. But doing that thinking, I'm sure we get.
Our thinking is, you know, students on campus deserve the best coverage, period. And, you know, as I said earlier, and I know that all of these people at this table would agree with me, you know, we are dedicated to our readers, our viewers, our listeners, you know, and what we want to do is give them the best. And, you know, from where we're coming from is, you know, catering to students. And so obviously, you know, we have our coverage, and we want students to be reading our stories and staying on our website and web traffic, and that's all great. But at the end of the day, what's going to keep people coming back to our website is the knowledge that if you come to our website, you know, we're going to give you the best that's on campus. So, you know, we bought, you know, 3 or 4 flip cams. You know, that's great. We can send our reporters out. You know, we can take video, and you know, that'll be all well and good. But Lysee over here's got a studio. You know, they've got much better cameras than we could ever hope for. You know, they've been training for this type of reporting, you know, all day, and you know, if we could give our readers some of their coverage, you know, in stuff that they're looking for, you know, that's even better. And the same thing with NeonTommy is, you know, we're a lot less familiar with covering LA than they are. You know, they sort of make this their thing, and they're very good at it. And so again, you know, if a reader comes to our website and there's a story from NeonTommy about some relevant happening around Los Angeles, we want to give that to our readers. And the same thing with KSCR. We do podcasts, but they do radio full time, and that's that type of just specialization all around is what I think all of our consumers deserve.
I think we have a bigger challenge. I think that the synergy among the student media is without being rhetorical about it or being Pollyannish about it, it is beginning to evolve. It's in its initial stages, but it is happening, and it's inevitable that that will evolve. I think the real challenge where all of the news organizations are going to have to really, or the media organizations are really going to have to deal with is that I don't think any of us have yet figured out how to make real the current rhetoric, and I don't mean rhetoric in a negative way, how to make real the current notion of real engagement with the audience and with the actual community of readers and viewers. In that sense, I think all of the media continue to be somewhat traditional in that sense, that they're speaking at their audience rather than dialoguing with the audience, which is very difficult to do. But that will also come because that's just the way that the media is working. Well, do you agree?
Just one thing I think maybe this is somewhat confusing point is that I think we're all concerned in journalism that there's going to be a degradation of quality for each of our mediums. I know a lot of people worry that with the website, if you're a radio reporter, that having to get all these on television too, you're having to get all these different elements, that you can't really focus on that one craft. And I think that what is great about us collaborating and becoming the big newsroom that we are is that we have these silos that where if you want to learn how to be a good radio person, which is really why Annenberg Radio decided in the summer to start collaborating more with NeonTommy. Why should we put that much effort into doing a very involved website when we have another organization that can provide some of that? And we can really focus on doing the radio part of it, and we can contribute what we can to the website. But I think that it's a good model for us to be experimenting with for the professional world, because we don't want to see a degradation. We don't want to see radio reporters having to, cut down on the quality of their stories, or TV reporters or print reporters, because there's so much pressure to do everything, which I think is really a big thing that everybody's struggling with now.
I wonder if you will talk a little bit about any performance measurement mechanisms that you're using to evaluate your product.
Well, I know that at Annenberg Radio, it's a sort of a strange time right now because we are trying to build this new system so that we're all on the same platform and being able to, and then the metrics will change. But right now, we actually have a new, this is not my specialty, although I'm learning a lot more about it now, actually in my other capacity at NeonTommy too, working on news. But we have a new person at first year who comes from Google. So she knows a lot about Google Analytics. What drives traffic? How do you measure those things? What's working? What's drawing people to your site? Where are they going from there? That kind of thing. And so starting to look at that, and we're doing the same thing at NeonTommy too, and I'm sure these guys are all doing the same thing, sort of looking at what people are looking at, how long are they spending their time on the story, those kind of things. And in the online side of things, I know in our classes we're talking about search engine optimization and what things are easy to do that make your story findable on the web. You guys want to add?
Yeah, I think that, specifically for NeonTommy, we're using Google Analytics, and we check, that's something that we monitor daily, right? And are very conscious of when you know, when we see spikes in our traffic and why that is. And I think to go a little bit more about what Richie was saying, I think that it's amazing how many easy little things you can do to make a huge difference to allow people to find your stories. Whether it's how you, and simple things of, you know, how you write your headlines or how you're tagging your stories, and then also we know that this we're learning that online it's, you know, this community, and there's also all these niche communities, and so what is really key for us is making the direct connection with someone else, saying, hey, here's a story of ours that you really should be posting on your blog because it's an interest to your readers, and making that specific personal connection pays huge dividends.
Something like 80% of all web traffic from these sites comes from someplace other than the person going organically to the front page of that site. So it means that 80% of the traffic from most websites comes because you've gotten there through a link or through a Google search or a search engine search. It's not because you've gone to, you know, the Anchorage Daily News that day. Something has taken you there. So, I mean, that's one of the things as a web-based organization that we take very seriously. And it does make the metrics interesting because we had a piece, for example, on Friday on NeonTommy that was picked up by Reuters and the Financial Times, and then was, you know, went somewhat viral through some other British and European websites. And, you know, you get a huge spike in traffic from that. But, you know, this is the new world where people are seeing that piece. They're not necessarily seeing the rest of your publication.
And for radio and print?
Well, our print readership is pretty constant, insulated. We've been at about 9,000 for a pretty long time, and it's pretty easy for us to gauge. You know, we put out a certain amount of papers every day, and, you know, it's pretty easy to tell, you know, what's being picked up. Obviously, like in the print realm, you know, it's a little bit harder to tell, you know, why people are picking up the paper, you know, what it is that they're reading. We, judging by the emails, a lot of people like Sudoku, that's for sure. But we have done reader surveys in the past. We did one at the end of last semester, and, you know, so we tried to get a feel for, you know, who is picking up the paper for the purpose of reading news or sports or lifestyle or opinion. And, you know, basically the stuff that we got back was, you know, a lot of the people on campus, you know, picking up the paper, they read the news section. A lot of people read the sports section. You know, and those bookends are, you know, sort of our two strongest reader, you know, attractors, I guess. But in terms of online, you know, I should say that our sports section is just monumentally more popular than any other section. Just because that's what, you know, on game, you know, when there's like a football game the next day or in a couple of days, or, you know, if some big, you know, some investigation development or some, you know, player injury or something like that, like our traffic just shoots through the roof because of all the alums, all the USC sports fans and football fans, you know, coming to the site to, you know, see what the deal is. In terms of general analytics, we've recently set up Google Analytics, which obviously is a very, very useful tool. I wish our web editor were here. He knows a lot more specifically, you know, sort of how we're tracking that. But you know, I'll use this to make another point about collaboration. This is search engine optimization, you know, reading analytics. That's stuff that we at the Daily Trojan, unfortunately, know very little about at this point. We're just sort of, you know, breaking into the whole world of, you know, cyber journalism, and it seems to me that there are some people at this table who could really help us out. So.
And for ATVN, just really quickly, like on the website of things, yeah, we're trying to do the same thing that has already been discussed, try to see how many hits we're getting for each stories and open up stories to comments. I guess for the TV side of things, we don't necessarily have a way to like look at our ratings, but we always say that, you know, the other local LA news stations, we consider them our competitors because we cover, you know, we cover campus news, but we also cover Los Angeles news. We cover national and international news because we get Pathfire feed. We're like a CNN affiliate, so we're able to do that stuff as well. So if it's a story like the hit and run that happened last semester, where we're breaking things before our local news stations, that's where we really that's how we gauge our performance and you know, compare our coverage to their coverage.
Well, I'll also say and I think for all the organizations, and especially ATVN, a lot of quality is driven by students who want to get jobs when they graduate. So I think students who are sending out producing resume tapes and reporter resume tapes, they're getting so much of that, the bulk of that work from ATVN. And I'm sure it's the same for, like, you know, the Daily Trojan and ARN and NeonTommy, that because our staffs consist of people who are trying to break into the market, that's really what drives the great quality that we get.
Yeah.
I have two questions. Hearing all you speak up there, I imagine 40 to 50-hour weeks. Do you find your grades suffering? That's the first question.
It requires a lot of time management, a planner. No, but not really. I think you can do it if you are very wise with how you manage your time, and also don't. I mean, this semester I actually did, in taking this executive position, have to take fewer classes because I didn't want to stretch myself thin.
I really want to hear your answer.
Well, we have sort of a weird schedule. I'm in the office throughout the day, but our production hours are from 5 p.m. to about midnight. So it's hard to do homework in the evenings, obviously, but weekends very important. And you know, I try as hard as I can to get things done during the day. I'll say my grades aren't suffering any more than they would at my own hands.
Keeping that from. We'll take the last 30 seconds.
My second question.
Oh.
If you could make any changes to the program to be more supportive of what you do there at your learning labs, what might those changes be?
You mean changes to the way like our classes are dealt with?
Changes in the curriculum, changes in faculty, changes in administration.
Well, I'd get Alan out of here as quickly as possible.
That's a good.
I think more web. We need to know more about the web. I mean, we all have all our different specialties, but we all still have our websites, and we're trying to make those the best. But you know, I mean, we have one in our curriculum, our core classes. We have one online journalism class, and I can't say that it's made me any like a web whiz or anything. So that's what I really feel like I would want more out of this. I need to know how to, you know, put together my own website, and you know what the best ways are to kind of manipulate it. And
I think that there should be, from the very beginning, a greater emphasis on how to produce something quickly, and that speed is really something done quickly and done well is really what's most important. And it's hard because there's the argument that, well, you need to learn how to do something well first before you can do it fast, and then then that requires time. But I think then you can really easily get into the mentality of that it's better to do well than fast, and it's starting as a student, maybe someone who doesn't have journalism experience. You really want to get into those people's minds from the very beginning that this is how it works. You have to know, I've covered something, how do I turn it in an hour? Because it's all about that speed, and that's something that even on and definitely still on working for NeonTommy, that it's always that constant battle of like, okay, just give me what you have, and we'll put it up as quickly as possible. And then it drags out for hours and hours, and that's what I would really like to see.
I think if there's anything, I mean, I think that, you know, regardless of where we are now and where we plan to go in terms of teaching new media, you know, my concern is journalism. You know, journalism is a thought process. Journalism is a way your mind needs to work at the end of the day. And, you know, the biggest problems we have, you know, at the Daily Trojan, you know, trying to get reporters to pick up these really, really intriguing, you know, important stories, you know, like you know, if you want to be a journalist, you have to know what the right questions are. You have to, it's almost like you have to learn an entirely, you know, additional way of processing information. You know, somebody tells you something, you have to think about that in a certain way, and you have to know, okay, you know, what questions do I need to ask as a result of this answer? You know, and you need to know, you know, what are the central elements of this story? It's like, it's sort of putting like a stream of logic together. And, you know, I think that developing your mind that way is just such an important part of the journalism education. And obviously, you know, we've got reporting, but, you know, my concern would be just making sure that in all of this moving forward, that we don't forget that, you know, before we learn how to use the web and before we learn how to take photos and shoot videos, we all need to learn how to be journalists. And, you know, that's the reason that we're doing any of this.
Well, thank you very much. And, who are left in the audience, let me urge you to support your student media organizations. I think they all have Twitter feeds and fan pages on Facebook, and you should sign up for their Twitter feed, you should sign up for their Facebook page, and stay in touch with your media. Thanks very much. Thank you.